Howdy folks, welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. What I wanted to do today was something slightly different. I've been doing a lot of high-tier tank reviews and gameplay footage lately, which is great. You know, there's definitely a place for that. You know, everybody loves seeing big numbers, big damage numbers and all that sort of thing. And you know, there are undoubtedly people out there for whom wanting to know what the AMX 5120, for example, the French Tier 9 heavy tank is like, is useful information because they've just finished the grind on their AMX 5100, they're looking to upgrade to the next tank. That sort of information is always useful. But there are far, far more people who are more interested in the stuff at the budget end of the market because, you know, those are the kind of tanks that they are actually driving. And they want to know what things are like down at Tier 3 and Tier 4. And I haven't really dwelled on that sort of the cheap end of the market much at all. And I figured it was time I fixed that. And that's what I'm going to do today. Today I am looking at some of the Tier 3 and 4 light tanks, particularly, well, I'm not going to say the new German Tier 3 light tanks because they've been around for a few patches, but I've kind of been dragging my heels about having a look at them. And I don't know why, because they're fantastic. I've had a lot of fun driving these little things. And here they are at Tier 3, the Panzer 2G and the Panzer 1C. If you have a look at the tech tree, these little buggers both sit here at Tier 3, but they both lead completely different places. The Panzer 1C is for the guys who are going down the dedicated German light tank scout line. Leads to the Lux, leads to the Leopard, leads to the VK2801, and the Aufklärungspanzer Panther, or the Scout Panther, or the piece of shit. No, I know I'm going to catch hell for saying that. It's all right, and I know there are people that do very, very well in it, but yeah, it just wasn't for me. But anyway, I digress. And of course the Panzer 2G being for the guys who are more interested in taking the light tank route down towards the German medium tank line. So, what I wanted to do, because these are only Tier 3 light tanks, and I don't want to go into too much detail about the stats. So I'm going to do a sort of 2 for the price of 1 deal here, and I'm going to put up the vehicle details of both the 1C and the 2G, and sort of compare them against each other. Now, you could be forgiven, and you'd be completely wrong, for looking at the stats of these two tanks and thinking, well, there's not much difference between them, and just assuming that the two tanks play the same way. They totally don't. Although looking at the stats of them, you could definitely be forgiven for thinking so. They both have the same amount of hit points, 230 versus 240. They both weigh around 10 tons, 10.92 tons for the 2G, 8.25 tons for the 1C. They both have exactly the same engine, 180 horsepower Maybach engine, which means, of course, that being slightly heavier, the Panzer 2G has a power-to-weight ratio of 16.48 horsepower per ton, whereas the Panzer 1C, being a lighter tank with the same engine, has a much more impressive 21.82 horsepower per ton power-to-weight ratio. And that's pretty much what you're going to see when you compare the stats of the two tanks. In all respects, this thing here, the 2G is slightly heavier, slightly less manoeuvrable, slightly slower than the 1C, while by no means being slow. You know, it's a fast little light tank. It's just that this thing is a bloody rocket. It does 79 kilometers per hour. It'll do more than that. I've done over 80 going downhill in this thing, no problem. I've almost done 90. The 2G will do a very respectable 65 kph. It wasn't that long ago that 65 kph was the top speed of any tank in the game. 48-degree traverse for the Panzer 1C, 44 for the Panzer 2G. Turret traverse, 42 again, sorry, for the Panzer 2G, and 44 for the Panzer 1C. They both have similar view ranges, 340 for the 1C, 330 for the 2G, and they both have excellent 700 meter signal range for those games when they have to perform as scouts. Speaking of when they have to perform as scouts, they do not get scout matchmaking. Both of these are Tier 3 light tanks. The biggest, the matchmaking that they get, the biggest threat they'll have to face will be Tier 5 tanks. The Lux at Tier 4 does get scout matchmaking. It will see Tier 8 games, but not down here at Tier 3. So that's, you know, something that you don't have to worry about. Armour-wise, believe it or not, the smaller, lighter, faster Panzer 1C actually has the better armour. Yeah, that came as a surprise to me as well. But it's nothing to get too excited about. Basically, the rear hull armour at the back is 20mm on this, and it's 14mm on that. 20 is still garbage. These things are not about the armour, not at all. 30 at the front, 20 at the sides, on the hull, both exactly the same. The turret, 30 at the front, 14 everywhere else. The only difference is the 14mm armour at the rear of the 2G versus the 20mm armour at the rear of the 1C. So they seem very, very similar, but you really, really couldn't be more wrong. The differences don't look a lot, but it's that power to weight ratio. It's that 21.82 versus 16.48 that really makes the difference. This little thing moves like a rocket. It's not the best power to weight ratio of a tier 3 light tank, but it's pretty good. And the Panzer 2G actually has a pretty poor power to weight ratio for a tier 3 light tank. It's actually quite heavy and sluggish. Even though it will do 65 kph, it takes a while to get there, unless it's going downhill, in which case it reaches that speed really quickly. But it's definitely not the little T50-2 wannabe that this thing is. That's not the only difference, of course. The major difference between these two tanks, other than the difference between their mobility, is the guns. And that's what really sets these two things apart. The Panzer 1C and the Panzer 2G both get the same two initial gun choices. They get that's a garbage stock 20mm flat gun. It's a rank 1 gun, it's rubbish. There's a rank 2 gun, which is a comical looking, like, look at the length of that. It's a slightly better 20mm flat gun, better penetration, better accuracy. But this is what it's all about on the Panzer 1C. This is what turns this tank into a distilled package of fun. It's a 7.92mm Mauser, and people could be forgiven for looking at the stats of this and thinking, that's absolute rubbish. I'm not putting that on my tank, because they look at the average damage, which is 8, which is shockingly bad, and they think, nah, no way. But what you should be looking at is the rate of fire, 253.52 rounds per minute. And it seems that it's magazine loaded, obviously, but every shot that you fire, every shell that you expend from the magazine, it seems like you actually get 3 or 4 shots out of the gun. It takes a surprisingly long time to actually empty the magazine, because it just keeps spitting bullets out with every pull of the trigger. And the reload between the shots, or between the loads of the magazine, is very, very, very quick. This thing never stops shooting. And that totally sort of determines how you play Little Fritz here. He just keeps rocketing around the battlefield, blasting away at absolutely everything that he sees with this little bullet hose he's got sticking out the front of his turret. It's so much fun to play. You can pretty much just disengage your brain and rocket around shooting stuff with this little tank. It's that kind of tank. You'll obviously do better if you think about what you're doing, but you really don't have to. It's just fun. There's no other way to describe this thing. I think it's one of the best tanks in the game. It's that much fun to drive. Now, I'm not saying the Panzer 2G is not fun to drive. Young Hansel here. He is fun to drive, but you definitely have to think about what you're doing. And not just because it's not quite as fast and it's a bit more sluggish than the 1C. It's because of the gun selection. It gets the same 2 stock weapons. There's the rubbish stock 20mm flat gun. There's the slightly less rubbish, comically long-barreled 20mm flat gun. But here's the new boy on the block. That 30mm machine cannon. That thing is what sets this tank apart from the Panzer 1C more than anything else. And the reason it sets it apart is primarily because of one thing. Well, it's 2 things really, but one of them's sort of hidden. The really obvious thing is the penetration, 95mm. Now remember, this thing can get into tier 5 games. If you get into a tier 5 game with a Panzer 1C, well, you're going to see in the replay what happens when you get into a tier 5 game with this thing. You can still do good, but you won't be killing any KV-1s in this thing anytime fast, not with 33mm of penetration. Whereas the Panzer 2G has 95mm of penetration, and the frontal armour on a KV-1 is 75mm thick, so good times ahead. However, there is a however, it's the reload. This is an autocannon. That 23.23 rounds per minute seems okay, and would be if that was a standard tank gun, but it's not. It's an autocannon. It has a reload on the magazine of around 20 seconds. That's a long time to be doing nothing in a tier 3 light tank, and that dictates how you really need to be playing this thing. Completely different from that, which you can just barrel around the place blasting away at everything. You try doing that in the Panzer 2G, you'll end up out of ammo, sitting around waiting to reload, and you'll just get killed. This is why you have to think about what you're doing in the Panzer 2G. It's a lot like driving one of the French light tanks with the autoloaders, like the AMX-12T or the AMX-1375. In fact, if you're used to driving the AMX-12T, this tank's a lot like it. It really is. You really have to plan what you're doing around the reload of the gun. You'll do, I think this thing does about 300 damage. If every shot hits and penetrates and does damage, you'll do 300 damage per drum of ammunition with this thing. It has 240 hit points itself. That's enough to kill any other tier 3. And with 95mm of penetration, you're probably going to do it. But it's the aiming time as well. That 2.3 second aiming time it's not terrible. But remember, you need to be stopped in order to aim and use, that aiming time. 2.3 seconds is sitting around waiting for your sights to settle on a target is bad news in a tier 3 light tank. So you very much have to think about what you're doing with this thing, plan your attack, plan what you're going to do when you're reloading, and read the map, read the battlefield. So this is very much the thinking man's tier 3 German light tank, whereas that really isn't. Any idiot can play this and do reasonably well and be guaranteed to have a lot of fun doing it. You need to think about what you're doing in the Panzer 2G because of the reload of that gun. All of which leads us on to tier 4 and the Panzer II Lux. Now, I have... what's the right word? I have not been looking forward to driving the Lux at tier 4. The Lux and the M3 Stuart were my two tier 3 pub stomper tanks of choice. The Stuart because it's just ridiculously effective, and the Lux not because it was particularly effective, because it really wasn't. I mean, it could be, but it just... 20mm flat gun or the 50mm cannon that it used, neither of them were very good. But the Lux was just fun. It was like this little bugger here, the Panzer 1C. And the Panzer 1C really does seem to have taken over from... It's the spiritual successor to the Lux when the Lux was a tier 3 light tank. Unfortunately, the Lux is now all grown up. It's a big boy now. It's a tier 4 light tank with tier 4 scout matchmaking. It will get into tier 8 games. And so I was very reluctant to... I didn't want to tarnish the memories that I had of driving the Lux as a tier 3 light tank by taking it out as a tier 4 light tank and just doing horribly in it. But I bit the bullet, I got off my ass, and I started playing the Lux again. And well, you'll see. I have a replay of the Lux as well. I'll tell you what, this gun, it's the same gun that you get on the Panzer 2G, the one that I was just talking about. You also get it on the Lux, but it's better on the Lux. It's more accurate. It aims slightly faster. It has a slightly faster reload. The reload is around 16 seconds. With 100% crew and ventilation fitted. None of these tanks, because they're autoloaders, can have gun rammers, so the only way you can improve the reload is by either using premium consumables or fitting improved ventilation. 16 seconds is the best you're going to get out of this thing. 16 seconds is acceptable. And again, it's just the previous gun selection that this thing had at tier 3 was pretty rubbish. It's good to have a decent gun on the Lux, so I did have that at least to look forward to, and we're going to see how it plays in the replay. So there you go, that's enough gabbing. Gentlemen, start your engines. This is one of the earliest games that I played in the Panzer 1C. It was shortly after the tank was introduced, and whenever I'm live streaming on Circumflex's live stream, we generally always have a Panzer 1C game, at least one. Just because they're so much fun to play. Now, by the way, just look at the speed of this thing. Would you look at that? That's what this thing's all about. Now, I was actually suffering from some lag spikes during this live stream, so you're going to see the video stutter at certain points. That's basically when I was lagging out. Nothing I can do about that, I'm afraid. Anyway, we're here on Karelia. It's a tier 3 game. Fantastic. Perfect stomping ground for this little machine. And oh look, an enemy Panzer 1C. He hits me in the suspension. It bounces, does no damage, and we've got him sandwiched. And there's my first kill. So, good start. You see how long it takes to actually expend all the ammunition in that 7.92mm gun? And that's how fast it reloads. That is really, really, really good. Now, one thing that I should have mentioned was that in every possibility, in every case where it's possible to do so, if you can fit enhanced suspension to these little things, then you fit enhanced suspension. What the enhanced suspension does is it's not about the suspension load limit. It's about increasing the durability, the health pool available to your tracks, so that when you pull a skid like that at high speed, it doesn't rip the tracks off. So that when your tank gets shot in the tracks, there's one of those lag spikes I was talking about, there's a few more coming up. So that when you get shot in the tracks don't fall off, leaving you exposed, immobile, in the open, vulnerable and waiting to die. Putting enhanced suspension on these little tanks saves lives. Simple as that. And it's dirt cheap. It's only going to cost you 20,000 credits at the most, which is half the price of the tank. But something like enhanced gun lane drive is 500,000. Now there's that Electo who popped a couple of shots over the top of me. Sorry, not an Electo, it was a Valentine AT. Point to note, when you're shooting at a Valentine AT, the hull is very, very tough. Ironically enough, the one part that isn't on an actual Valentine, the gun shield that was put there to protect the crew, is actually the weakest part of the armour. That's where you should always try to shoot a Valentine AT. M2 medium? Yeah, no problem. Almost destroyed him. You see, the shots hit him so fast. It actually looks like you've set his engine on fire with the damage numbers floating off it. Now, this game wasn't going particularly well. I mean, I was having the time of my life. It was fantastic. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the rest of the team. So, we're 2 kills down and things are only going to get worse. However, I can see targets. I know that UE-57 over there has probably the worst gun depression of any vehicle in the game. But that BT over there is, well, just look at this. Just watch his health evaporate. Oh, I love this gun. And it's got such a fast aiming time as well. 1.3 second aiming time. It's absolutely epic. Oh, I'll take a hit. Guess what? Shoots me in the tracks. Doesn't do any damage. Enhanced suspension. Now we're being capped. So, okay, I'll head back. Unfortunately, my cunning plan got sidetracked right here by this Marder. I couldn't leave him. I had to stop and kill him. And the length of time it took me to do that, because I'd been spotted, basically meant that cost us the game. Now I'm stuck in the swamp. I'm slowed down. They know where I am. They've seen me coming. There is no time for me to get back and reset the cap. And we should never have lost that game. But yeah, it's a tier 3 game. This sort of thing happens. But, you know, doesn't matter. It's illustrated what the tank can do. The sort of thing that you can pull off in this little machine. And, you know, 682 XP, base XP for a defeat in a tier 3 tank? That's not bad. There's a Spartan award. And unsurprisingly, the most damage done, me and Circumflexes, and the most XP earned. The most XP earned by far. I mean, that's just shockingly embarrassing for for everyone else. But, you know, it's a tier 3 game. You can't expect Erwin Rommel to be driving the tanks in your tier 3 matches. You know, this is the sort of result you can expect if you're used to driving tanks. You're used to playing World of Tanks, and and you go down to tier 3 for a bit of a laugh. You know, you should expect to see numbers like this. So, change of pace. This time we are very, very much the little fish in the very, very big pond. It's a tier 5 game. This is the worst matchmaking you're likely to see in these little things. Myself and our other platoon mate, Foch, are both in our Panzer 1C. Circumflexes is in his M22 Locust, and we just looked at the matchmaking here and we thought, you know what? Man mode. We're just going to go for it. I mean, Circumflexes with his 37mm gun, if he gets around the rear of maybe one of those KV-1s, he could probably damage them, but we certainly can't, not with these 7.92mm. So we're just gonna, it's cat amongst the pigeon times, we're just going for it. And these little things are small enough targets, and they are fast enough and manoeuvrable enough to dodge so much fire. Just check this out. And on our team, it has to be said, our team rose to the occasion. They took full advantage of the chaos that we threw the enemy team into. And the trick, of course, is just don't stop. Don't ever stop. If you stop, you die. Simple as that. Most of my shots are missing, and you're going to expect that driving this thing at high speed, but if you stop, you die. And my enhanced suspension is going to save my ass in this game as well. I haven't been hit yet. I mean, there are about 6 tanks shooting at me. They only have to get lucky once. And there we go. So there's one. That was a big old hit. Half my health. But we found the scumbags. Oh, it's time to have fun. Circumflexes is going for the Stern Panzer II. I'm going to go for the Vesper. I'm going to get you little... Oh, it's not a Vesper, it's a Gorilla. Yeah, there you go. Doomed. And you know, people often say, oh, well, I'm in my little tier 3 light tank, I get into a tier 5 game, or I'm in my tier 4 light tank, I get into a tier 6 or 7 game, and there's just nothing I can do. No, there's always something you can do. I mean, you know, look at this. Totally worth it. Unfortunately, I am the only survivor of the tier 3 light tank brigade. And I'd quite like to survive this game, thanks very much, so I'm going to play the rest of this slightly less suicidally as we did at the beginning, but totally worth it. Totally worth it. The team rose to the occasion, they didn't hang back, and they took full advantage of the chaos that we sowed in the enemy team, and while they were all desperately trying to kill us, the rest of the team just took them apart. I mean, this was a rout. And it's all because we just went for it and didn't die until our job was done. In fact, I haven't even died yet. I'd like to do a bit more damage, but it's not going to happen. But, you know, I'm not complaining. I killed me a scumbag. In fact, all 3 artillery kills were us. We got the BS in the deployment zone, we got the Stern Panzer II, and we got the Gorilla. So I'm going to call that one a result. Now, all that remains, well, they've just got a T-25, and I'm desperate to get a shot into this guy before he dies, but the rest of the team was just, you know, too fast, and there. And, oh no, just too slow. So, that was a good win. Good result in a Tier 5 game for tanks, you know, this small. And there it is. So, yeah. That was fun. That was just start to stop, knuckle-biting, adrenaline-fueled, fun gameplay all the way through. Immense fun to play. And that's the hallmark of the Panzer 1C. It's just a fun little tank. Unsurprisingly, we didn't get the most damage or XP, but we did all right. You know, the targets that we were capable of killing, we killed. The targets that we were capable of damaging, we damaged. And the chaos that we caused in the enemy team basically enabled our team to kick some ass. So we did our job. And that's what you can do in these little things in higher tier games. So let's have a look at the Panzer 2G. This time I'm teamed up with my trusty camera minion, Eddie. That's him, oncoming Storm, in his M2 medium. and his friend Apu in his cruiser. Apu, I believe, is from Sweden. We're here on Himmelsdorf, again, Tier 3 maximum game. So, what we're going to do, quick drive-by of the centre of town, see if we can get some sneaky spots and anybody trying to force the middle. Over this side, spotted the Panzer 1C making a break for it. Here's that 2.3 second aiming time on this 30mm. 2.3 seconds is not a bad aiming time on a tier 5, 6, 7 or 8 tank. Down here at the lower tiers, it's a very, very long aiming time. 2.3 seconds is like a howitzer aiming time at this sort of level. It is going to affect how you play this thing. You know, this is the price that you pay for 95mm of penetration. And there's a Panzer II. It's quite a tough little tier 2 tank, but unbelievably, I actually get a bounce. Not yet, but you just wait. And we're waiting for the reload. Take some cover, move up, and wait for it to aim, wait for it to aim. Panzer II seen me, he's angling. Come on, I've got to kill him. That's the bounce. Finally get him. Wow, seriously. 95mm penetration, bouncing off a Panzer II. The one thing you'll note, the magazine has 3 shots. Every shot is worth 2 shots, if you like. Every time you pull the trigger and expend 1 shell, you actually get 2 shots. When you get this gun on the Lux at tier 4, you actually get a magazine of 4 shots, or in effect 8. Now, look at the map. Have you seen what I've seen? And you know, this is something you can be doing, that will vastly, even down at, in fact especially at this sort of low level, because nobody else seems to bother doing it. Just look at your map. There's nobody on the eastern side. They've taken the hill. They're going to come down and sweep into our base, or come straight down. There we go. Spotted one coming down the main road, down the 8 line. Let's head over to intercept, or at least that's my plan. But again, the aiming time of this 30mm gun, I'm not going to say it gets me into trouble, but it costs me a kill. We're coming around to get this Panzer. There's me and a Chi-Ha. Now, I could have taken the shots and would probably have hit him, but might have hit the Chi-Ha as well. So while I'm waiting for that aiming circle to settle down, Chi-Ha kills him. That's not a problem that you have with any of the other autocannons down at this sort of level. So, you know, and I'm not complaining, because I get 95mm of penetration, but it's something that you need to be aware of. This is very much a thinking man's tier 3 light tank. So I'm going up the hill to deal with that cruiser. And again, look at the difference in speed. The Panzer 1C would be coming up this hill at 20 kph. Because of the difference in the power to weight ratio, the Panzer 2G only manages 15. Cruiser takes a shot and misses. It's always satisfying having people shoot at you and miss. But very much like the French light tanks with their autoloaders, you have to make every shot count with this thing. Now take a hit, doesn't do a lot of damage, take another hit, doesn't do a lot of damage, and now I'm out of ammo, and he's not dead. And waiting for the reload, waiting for the reload. Angle the tank, angle the tank, angle the tank. Reloaded, wait for it, let it aim. Make sure each shot goes in. And oh crap, there's an M2 behind me, and he has the howitzer. Bang, there you go. Now, as you can see, this thing is very fast on a downhill slope. And that's a bit of luck, actually, because I needed to get the hell out of there and reload. But now I am reloaded, and I can turn around, and I need to be careful, because I don't have a lot of health left, but I can start putting shots into that M2. And only having 3 bursts from this autocannon is a bit of a blessing in disguise, because it means that you don't have to expose yourself as much to unload your magazine. Unfortunately, while you're reloading, and this is where you put the speed of this thing to use, when you're reloading. That M2's got a real hard on for me, but I can fire faster than he can. So there you go. Not a bad result at all. In fact, I think that's probably the best result I've had. I don't play the Panzer 2G that much, so there's my second class mastery badge, and unsurprisingly, the most XP, the most damage done, and so on and so on and so on. But and again, you know, if you've been playing World of Tanks for a while and you come down to these sort of low tiers and go pub stomping, you should expect to be able to do pretty well, whatever tank you're driving, purely because of the experience that you have, and little things like actually looking at the map, which nobody else seems to do down at this sort of level, will really stand you in good stead, and you'll end up getting good result. I mean, it's not a fantastic result, but it's a good result, and it showcases how the tank works, I suppose. Very, very much like a tier 5 or 6 French, sorry, not tier 5 or 6, a tier 6 or 7 French autoloader. You've got to work it around the reload of that gun. That's the primary defining characteristic of that tank. It's that 30mm cannon and the reload. So that's the Panzer 1C and the Panzer 2G. Now it's time to have a go in the tank that I was resisting having a go in, the Panzer 2 Luchs. And purely because I just didn't want this thing to be bad at tier 4. I have so many fond memories of driving this thing at tier 3. I was really not looking forward to driving it at tier 4 in case it wasn't any fun. Now, the first thing I should point out is I actually made a mistake. When I was in the previous map on Himmelsdorf in the Panzer 2G, the Panzer 2G with this gun only has a 3-shot clip, and I said that the Luchs has a 4-shot clip. That's not true. The Luchs actually has a 5-shot clip, so straight away you can see how much better this gun is. 1 tier higher at tier 4. Not only that, it only has a 2.1 second aiming time, and it has better accuracy. So it's just fantastic, and a really good start that the Luchs actually has a decent gun now that it's a tier 4 light tank. However, this is the first game that I've driven in the Luchs. I've never driven it since it became a tier 4 tank, and this map is not ideal for a light tank. This is the new map, Sacred Valley. It's a tier 5 game. Matchmaking could have been distinctly worse, so there is always that. But the thing about this map is there is so much destructible cover, and light tank drivers will know what I'm talking about, because that stuff slows you down. This is a very, very tough map to be driving a light tank on, and when I say driving, I don't mean playing a light tank. I mean the physical act of steering the tank. You can't afford to be driving through all of these single-story buildings that are all destructible, because you just get stuck on the wreckage. It slows you down, and slowed and stuck light tanks are very, very much dead light tanks. And I haven't really played this map enough to know. I mean, this looks like a decent scouting position, except I don't think I've spotted anything. I think everybody else has done the spotting, so I'm wasting my time here. I need to be careful. I need to try to use the terrain to mask myself from fire from enemy tanks, and I want to get up here and support my mediums. That's the plan anyway. It doesn't quite work the way I intended. I'm waiting for that Type T-34 to back up so I can put some shots in his ass, but I've totally miscalculated because he's actually on the other side of a wall anyway. And no, we're going to lose that friendly. He's going to die. And yep, there's a Hetzer up top there who's taking pot shots at him as well. And I'm actually sliding down this incline. I almost got stuck here. I really don't know this map at all. And I do not have the gun elevation to hit that Hetzer. And he's behind cover anyway. He's retreated. He's on low health. Screw it. I'm going for the Chinaman. Seems appropriate on this map, even though, you know, it's not China, it's Korea. And that's what this gun can do. Very, very fast. The rate of fire is really, really good. That guy stood no chance. Okay, now 16-second reload with this gun on the Luchs. Again, significantly better than on the Panzer 2G. There you go, reloaded already. Now, in retrospect, I do have 95mm of penetration, but that's a long-range shot, and that AT2, he has 100mm of side armour, so not one of those shots appeared to do any damage. Probably knows where I am, however, so I'm in cover while I reload and disappear off his radar. And this ain't looking too good. We're losing 8, 9, and we're being capped. Well, fastest tank on the team. Make sure I'm not going to get shot at. Check that I'm clear. And let's head back and reset that cap. Now I have enhanced suspension fitted to the Lux. And in case the message isn't getting through yet, it's going to save my ass. Oh, ooh, that was close. See all this sliding down the side of hills? Stuff like that can rip your tracks off if you don't have the enhanced suspension. But you know, that was a maybe, could have, would have. There's my first kill, anyway. Not too long, and you're going to see how having the enhanced suspension definitely prevented me from being killed. This Hetzer doesn't appear to want to go around the corner first and deal with that Panzer 3-4, so I'll have a go. I get shot in the tracks. I'm still moving. I take a hit from the Panzer 3-4. I don't do much effective fire at him. I don't rip my tracks off when I hit that rock. I get shot in the back. The tracks take it. I go airborne. The tracks take it. I manage to get into cover. If I hadn't had the enhanced suspension, there were 3 occasions there where this tank would have become immobile. It's definitely paid for itself at this stage. Okay. 3 tanks left alive on both teams. Panzer 3-4's moved. He's up there. Okay, I can go for it. I'm reloaded. I've got 5 shots, which effectively is 10 shots. They all have 95mm of penetration. Come on, baby. Daddy needs another kill. Daddy's going to get another kill. And there we go. Game 1. That was a relief. And it was a relief because that game was fun. The Lux has still got it. And that was my main concern with the Lux. I mean, the Lux was always a fun tank to drive. Yeah, we did all right. We did all right, definitely. Tier 4 light tank, Tier 5 game. On a map that I really didn't know at all, and we did okay. Right then, so that was fun. And that's really the hallmark thing about these little machines. I mean, I knew that the Panzer 1C was fun. It really, really is. It's just switch your brain off and derp around having fun in this thing. It's immense. It's a real stress reliever. It's a fantastic little tank. I love it to bits. The Panzer 2G is also fun, but you have to think more about what you're doing. And I was very, very worried that the Panzer II Lux wasn't going to be fun anymore. I didn't want to tarnish the memory of this thing, of the fun that I had with it at Tier 3 by driving it at Tier 4 and finding out it was shit. Well, it's not. I wouldn't really care if it was still not effective, because it wasn't particularly effective at Tier 3. It was just fun to drive, as long as it was still fun to drive. And the good news is it is still fun to drive, so that's a real relief. But the great news is it's not just fun to drive, it's actually effective now. It's got a good gun, which is something it never had at Tier 3. So it's good news all around for the Panzer II Lux as well. So I've had a lot of fun driving these tanks. If you are already driving, down the German tank line, you'll already know what I'm talking about. If you're thinking about starting off on the Germans, yeah, do it, definitely. You won't regret driving these little things. I've had a lot of fun driving them. I hope you've had fun watching the video. As always, take care on that battlefield, and I will catch you next time.